everybody, this is Tech G back with another video. And in this video, I'm going to be explaining to you exactly what ethical hacking is in case you have no idea. So let's get into it. Let's talk about something that sounds a little scary at first, but is actually very important to our digital world, and that is ethical hacking. Now, I know you're probably saying, but wait, isn't hacking bad? Well, not always. So with that being said, let me go ahead and explain to you exactly what ethical hacking is in case this is what you want to do with your professional career. So let's go. Before we get into ethical hacking, let's take a step back and look at what hacking actually is. So hacking, this is the act of gaining unauthorized access to data in a system or computer. It might involve exploiting weaknesses in code, passwords, network configurations, or even people by way of social engineering like phishing. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all hackers are bad. In fact, some of them are hired by companies and paid very well to find these weaknesses before the bad guys do. And that's where ethical hacking comes in. All right, so exactly what is ethical hacking? Well, ethical hacking, which is also known as penetration testing or white hat hacking, this is when a cybersecurity expert uses their hacking skills for good. So think of it like this. A thief breaks into your house and steals your TV. Well, an ethical hacker, they quote unquote break in with your permission, shows you the broken window that you forgot to lock, and says, hey, this is how you go about fixing it. Now, the goal of ethical hacking is to essentially find vulnerabilities in a system, report them responsibly, help patch or fix those systems, and prevent real attacks from happening. So in short, they hack to protect, not to harm. All right, next let's talk about white hats versus black hats versus gray hats. So you'll often hear hackers referred to by hat colors, kind of like an old school Western movie. All right, so here's your breakdown. When it comes to a white hat, these are the ethical hackers. And their motivation is pretty simple. They provide security protection and they are paid professionals. Then you have your black hats. These are the malicious hackers and they are motivated by money, destruction, spying, and just causing chaos. And then you have what is called a gray hat, and they are somewhere in between. And their motivations are they might break in without permission, but they don't always cause harm. So essentially, ethical hackers, these are the white hats. They follow laws, they get written permission, and they work to improve security. All right, next, let's talk about exactly what do ethical hackers actually do. So let's break this down into everyday tasks. So ethical hackers don't just try to break stuff. They follow a structured approach. So here's what they typically do. First, they go out there and gather recon or they gather information, and they start by collecting as much information as possible about the target system, such as who owns the website, what software is it running, and are there open ports or services. And this step is all about mapping out the environment. Then there's scanning and enumeration. So they use tools like Nmap and Nessus to scan for open ports, running services, vulnerabilities, configuration issues. And you could think of this as probing a fortress for weak spots. Then they try to go out there and gain access. And this is where the actual hacking takes place. So ethical hackers, they might exploit known software vulnerabilities, bypass weak passwords, inject malicious code in a controlled way. But remember, they're not doing this to damage anything. They're testing how a real attacker could actually do it. Another thing they might do is maintain access. So sometimes they simulate how long an attacker could stay in the system undetected. And this is called persistence. And this helps companies figure out if their logging and monitoring systems are actually working. And then there's reporting and remediation. And this is critical because a good ethical hacker, they write up what they found, how serious it is, how to fix it, and what tools or methods were used. And these reports, they can help businesses close the holes before attackers find them. All right, next, let's talk about some of the tools that ethical hackers use. So ethical hackers, they use many of the same tools that malicious hackers use, but the difference is in how they use them. So here are some of the most popular ones. So they use Kali Linux, and this is the go-to ethical hacking operating system that is jam-packed with all types of tools. You have a tool called Metasploit, and this is a framework for exploiting vulnerabilities. You have another tool called Nmap, and this is used for network scanning and reconnaissance. You got a tool called Burp Suite, and this is a web app testing. It's very popular for bug bounty hunters. You got a tool called Wireshark, and this is for network packet analysis. You got one called John the Ripper, and this is used for cracking passwords. And you got a tool called Hydra, and this is used for brute force login testing. And basically, being an ethical hacker with all these tools is kind of like being a locksmith. You use the tools to open things, but for the right reasons. All right, next let's talk about some of the skills that every ethical hacker needs. So, ethical hacking isn't all about tools and flashy commands in a terminal. It takes a combination of technical skills, such as you having knowledge about networking, Linux, and scripting. You have to be able to critically think, meaning you have to think like how a hacker would actually think. You have to have some communication skills, meaning you got to be good at writing reports and explaining findings. And you got to have some legal knowledge where you have to understand what is allowed and what is not. And some key knowledge areas that you need to have are networking, where you need to know about TCP/IP ports and protocols, operating systems like Linux and Windows, web technologies like HTTPS, SQL, and HTML, programming skills where you know how to script in Python and Bash, and some security principles like the CIA triad, firewalls, and access control. And yes, curiosity is a must. So you need to enjoy poking around systems and finding out how they work if you want to be a successful ethical hacker. So, speaking of ethical hacking, how exactly do you become one? Well, you don't need to be a genius or have a computer science degree, but you do need dedication and a roadmap. So here's what you should do. First thing you need to do is go out there and learn the basics of IT. So start with getting your CompTIA Network Plus. Go out there and learn Linux when it comes to various distributions like Ubuntu, Kali, and learn the command line. Also go out there and get your CompTIA Security Plus certification. Once you do all of that, then you want to dive into ethical hacking. So once you got the basics down, you want to learn about penetration testing methodologies. Then you can practice with tools and labs like Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, or cybersecurity labs. Then you want to go out there and get certified, because certifications, they can help show employers that you're serious. And the most popular one is the Certified Ethical Hacker by EC Council. And some other great certifications you can get are the CompTIA Pen Test Plus, the Offensive Security Certified Professional, and this one is tough, but it is highly respected. And then you have the EJPT, or the Junior Penetration Tester, which is great for beginners. And then you want to get your practice on. So you want to set up a home lab or use online platforms to test your skills in a legal environment. And also, you never want to practice on a live network that you do not own or you do not have permission to test on. All right, so after you do all of that, where could you work as an ethical hacker? Well, you can find yourself working in all types of roles and jobs out there. So the most common role is that of a penetration tester. You have what is called a red team operator, where they are a part of a simulated attack team. You have cybersecurity analysts, security consultants, and vulnerability assessors. And you can find yourself working in government agencies like for the NSA or the FBI. You can find yourself out there in big tech, working for Google, Microsoft, Amazon. You can find yourself in banks and finance, and you can find yourself working in healthcare, startups, or some consulting firms. And then you could even do some freelance work, or you could participate in bug bounty programs. Now let's talk about the money. How much money do ethical hackers tend to make? Well, here's a breakdown. So at the entry level, you're earning about $70,000 to $90,000. Mid level, you're looking at 90 to about 120. And senior level, you're looking at about 120 to $150,000 plus per year. Plus, bug bounty platforms like HackerOne and BugCrowd, they pay hackers to find vulnerabilities in company systems. And even companies like Facebook, Google, and PayPal, they pay people to hack them legally. So, with all of that said, is ethical hacking dangerous or illegal? So, here's the deal: ethical hacking is 100% legal if you have permission. That's the golden rule. You must have written authorization, a clearly defined scope, and agreed upon rules of engagement. Now, without permission, it becomes unauthorized access, and that is illegal, even if your intentions are good. That's why real ethical hackers always document everything and follow strict protocols. So in case you're still wondering exactly what does an ethical hacker do, so here is a real world example. So let's say that a hospital hires an ethical hacker to test its systems, and the hacker finds a default admin password that's still active on a medical device, or an exposed database with patient records, or a misconfigured firewall that lets attackers in. Well, the ethical hacker is going to report the issues, and hopefully the hospital will fix them before real criminals can exploit them. And as a result of that, lives and data can be saved. So basically, that's ethical hacking in action. Why does ethical hacking matter more now than ever? Well, we live in a hyper connected world from smart refrigerators to online banking. Everything is linked. That means there are more opportunities for hackers, both good and bad. And in 2024, the average cost of a data breach, this was over $4.5 million. dollars. Also, ransomware attacks, they're constantly hitting hospitals, cities, and schools, and critical infrastructure such as power paths and water systems. All of that stuff is now online. And so we need ethical hackers to stay one step ahead of the bad guys. We need them to think like the attackers and then protect the things that matter. So that's why ethical hacking actually matters. All right, so let me go ahead and wrap all this up. So at the end of the day, ethical hacking is about trust. Companies trust ethical hackers to find the flaws that criminals might exploit. And ethical hackers who are armed with curiosity, skill, and integrity, they rise to the challenge. So if you ever dreamed of being a digital detective, solving complex problems, and doing work that actually matters, then welcome to the world of ethical hacking. It's not just about breaking into systems, it's about protecting them, staying one step ahead, and always hacking the right way.